You are listening to WRUULP, Savannah, Georgia, 107.5 FM. We are Savannah Soundings, community radio with a global soul. Our theme music is a clip of Summer Nights by the Eric Jones Trio. It's provided by our friend Mark Chesanout, who plays with the Eric Jones Trio every Thursday and Sunday at Good Times Jazz Bar downtown.
Hey everyone, welcome to Arts on the Air. This is Tamara Garvey, and I have the pleasure today of being with local writer Jessica Leigh Lebos. Welcome.
Thank you. It's such a beautiful day.
Oh my gosh, it's amazing. This is, and just to set the scene, so this show is going to come out on Wednesday the 15th, which will be T-minus 2 days to the biggest holiday, the St. Patrick's Day in Savannah. We're recording this the week before. We're in the middle of pollen time. But weather-wise, it's beautiful. Okay, so here's a little description of Jessica. Her bio, she calls herself writer, adopted Southerner, anti-socialite, Camellia Thief.
The first book is a collection of observations about Savannah, and coincidentally, so is the second book. So
okay. Savannah is your muse, right?
Yeah,
so it's perfect.
Savannah is my muse.
So your first book is called Savannah Sideways from 2018. And you used to write, you had a regular column in the Connect Savannah that started in 2011, right?
Yeah.
Back in the heyday of the Connect Savannah.
It was really a great time to be in Savannah.
Yeah.
And even before that too, and that was sort of like we had a great team of people who worked there and covered the community, and
just so much covering about arts and events and culture. It was a real heyday. I didn't even plan this because I'm terrible at planning, but I love that you are the interview that's coming out right before St. Patrick's Day, because the interview is about the process of writing and being a working writer and the creativity, but it's also it's always about like the subject matter people have, and your whole subject matter is Savannah, so I feel like it's perfect for coming out at St. Patrick's time.
Yeah.
I love it. Okay, so let's start. So you were born in New Jersey and then you were raised in Arizona, right?
Right. Yeah. New Jersey is a long time ago, but I'm told I still have a little bit of it in me. But I grew up in Arizona, my early childhood, and up through college, and then I dramatically shaved my head and moved into a Volkswagen bus and was driving. I was on my way to Alaska.
Wow.
And my van broke down just north of the Golden Gate Bridge in Marin County, and there I met Mark Lebos, Savannian, and
just out and about.
Yeah, well, my van broke down actually, and that was and so I ended up really being planted in Marin County, which is a really special place, and where I learned, I think for the first time, like what it means to live in community, and really and also having fun. Like we lived in a very small town called Fairfax, which is the last real town before the Point Reyes National Seashore, which is this beautiful wilderness. So living there was amazing, and and that's where I met Mark Lebos, and he had come out from Savannah, and we would come back here at least twice a year for long periods of time.
He still had all his family here.
His family is here, and they have a beach house at Tybee, so that was, I married well, I don't know what to tell you. So we would come back a lot and stay at Tybee and stay in town, and I got to know Savannah in the kind of the mid-90s and then Mark's mom got sick, and she had frontal temporal dementia and was declining sort of at a 45-degree angle, and I realized the summer of 2005 while we were here that this was our window, that we needed to come and be there for her.
Yeah.
Our kids were still small enough that we could, make an easy transition. And compared to Marin County, the housing was much more affordable. We were never going to be buying a house in the San Francisco Bay Area, and when I moved here, I had all these dreams of like some gorgeous Victorian, and we were gonna redo house. We don't redo things, like I don't know, we're Jews, like it's not in our wheelhouse, and we sure wish we bought more property, but
you gotta know yourself.
We have a lovely home with like mid-century great place. And,
that's a whole other aspect of Savannah. Is we do have a lot of mid-century modern houses
amazing
here,
things. How the city was built backwards. As you get further south, it's like these demarcations of architectural eras. It's really interesting.
So are you kind of in Midtown or Ardsley Park? Is that's where the mid-century houses are?
Well, so if you said Ardsley Park was like where I live, they were like, oh, that's ridiculous. That's not where it is. Ardsley Park stops at 52nd Street. 52nd Lane, actually.
There's a lot of old rules.
Oh, absolutely. So more like Habersham Village area is the way I describe it. And it's like I personally think the best neighborhood in Savannah, because it's the red and white is there, Haversham
Yes.
Liquor, Coffee Deli.
Still a camera and Photoshop, which I love.
I know,
that
big
Savannah still
camera
has
is such a
that. It makes me
treasure.
so happy.
Agreed.
The only other thing, I don't know if this is still there. For a long time on Victory, there was like a sewing machine repair shop. I would love it if it were still there.
I do too. I used to take my sewing machine there to be repaired.
Oh, that's very cool.
I don't know, and I barely use it anymore because if it breaks, I don't know who to take it to.
I love things like that, or like a typewriter repair shop or something.
I don't think those exist.
I don't
anymore.
think that's there anymore.
I don't think that's a thing, but
but I did once get a lamp repaired at a lamp repair store. I love
in Savannah.
This was actually in DC, but I love anytime that there's like a thing, like a business of people who work with their hands and repair old things, and then they hand it down to the next generation.
I feel like you could
my playful vibe.
If you were a fixity person, you could open a storefront and have people bring their small appliances to you to fix, because people don't fix shit anymore.
I know.
They throw it away.
Things are just built now to be
and then they
thrown out in a few
explode, and they're
years,
such poor quality. But if we knew, if it were easy, if it were somebody in your neighborhood or in your town, and you're like, here is my vacuum cleaner and my toaster. And this little handheld blender thing. Can you help me?
A vacuum cleaner and a blender. Those are really good suggestions, because I think my mom still has like the same vacuum cleaner and blender from the 80s, because things then were they were constructed to last a really long time. Yeah. Anyway,
it's a different time.
Okay, so you've been like living full time in Savannah since about 2005, 2006.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, cool. And were you? Did you ever live out on Tybee?
Yes,
that's very interesting.
We lived our first year out on Tybee.
Yeah.
So the people that I know that live on Tybee full time are, well, first of all, Shirley Sessions, the mayor, and her sister Sandy are some of the first people I met when we lived that year on Tybee. Was a really interesting time, and it was a really good buffer for me, because it was a real heartbreak for me to break up with California. And so living on Tybee, being in this tiny little community, and we immediately met people who were wonderful and took us in, and and the children had these wonderful friends, such great people on Tybee. I don't know that I've heard that they're afraid to come downtown, but they just don't want to leave Tybee because it's kind of that great.
It's their own little thing, yeah.
Because living, and now it's really changed a lot. I think that a lot of people there's a lot more, there's obviously a lot more. The short-term rental situation there is really infuriating for a lot of people. And then people, I think, have homes in there and have homes in other places. So there's a lot of people who aren't from
full-time
from the South at all, who are there, who bought, this is their kind of retirement winter place.
So when you arrived in town, were you working as a professional writer early on?
Yes, I mean, at that point, like when I first got here, I mean, I had 2 children who were like, when we moved here, they were 6 and 2. And so I freelanced for like publications in San Francisco. I had a blog.
Like journalism? That's what you were
journalism, but I've always, I know, so my degree, I am not a trained journalist, and I've never said I was. I don't want everybody to know that, because that's, no.
For the record.
I have always called myself a writer. I have a degree in creative writing.
Oh, okay.
My first job, and my first jobs were for alternative news weeklies, and so I was staff at Alternative News Weekly in California. That's what I was doing when Mark and I met. I was the columnist. I was
very California.
24, and I thought I was real hot shit.
You were.
I mean, I guess it was. Those were amazing years, because I felt like at that 24, 25, I did not. I felt like I had sort of escaped a really dangerous life path. I had a lot of issues when I was young with drugs and destructive behaviors, and I mean, I had a lot of fun, don't get me wrong, and I come from a great family, and I have the privilege of parents who cared about me, and so, but I was so grateful by that point in my life to have turned my life around. I had this job at the newspaper. I mean, I made no money, but I live in this, oh my God, this crazy
kind
house
of lifestyle of 20s.
When you're young, you don't care. I mean, my rent was like $300.
Right. You have a million people in your house.
Crazy people. Yeah, it was so, that kind of thing, and it was so fun. And I found this guy, and I think when Mark and I started dating, we had been friends a long time when we first met, and then slowly in our friendship, I'm like, this guy's like a really good guy. And we would do a lot of things together. I was at the paper there, and he would he was in grad school. I'm like, all he did was surf and like smoke weed and come on like hikes with me, and like, so I'm like, he had
really become Californian.
He definitely was having a good time. He fished a lot. He really enjoyed the nature there. It's just astounding. I mean, it's beautiful here, but the mountains, it's just different.
Yeah, it's different
and it's
trees.
Cooler. It's beautiful. Yeah. Anyway, long story short, like I saw him with his shirt off one day, and I was like, oh, well, he is cute, isn't he? So, and then that literally, like, after that, was like, bam.
That's so fun.
And we knew pretty early on that, like, this is it, and we're gonna, So when the first time I came to Savannah, the air is so different here. I grew up in Arizona where it's super dry.
Right.
And California, it was like moist and dank. Like I didn't love like the constant rain. That wasn't my favorite. The summers were glorious, but like the fall, but like wet and cold.
Yeah.
Not my favorite.
Here is like walking through soup.
Well, and it was like kind of, the first time I came, it was the winter. It was like a December, and there was still like a moistness in the air, but it was beautiful. And we were out at Tybee, and like, it's kind of great here, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I stood on that trip. His mother, Jessica Leigh Lebos, was the first docent and developed the museum, like helped to develop the museum program and the docenting program at Mikveh Israel Synagogue. So she was this font of history and information. She was the loveliest. She was so sweet. I just, I love my mother-in-law very much. And that was why when she got sick that I said, well, we just have to do this. And not only like is it the right thing to do, it's the best thing for our family as well. I mean, the best thing I'm so glad we came here, and my kids were raised here. I mean, it was really, people were like, oh, you're taking your little fairy hippie children to the South? What, your son wears dresses to the park. And I'm like, I'm like, you know what, I think we're gonna be good.
Yeah.
I had, and when we came here, the kids went to Charles Ellis Montessori, and we had the most wonderful community there.
Yeah,
and it worked out pretty
good. Because you're not just coming anywhere in the South, you're coming to Savannah.
Exactly. So, but your question was I working as a professional writer?
Yes.
And so from there, I got married, and then I became a freelancer, and that was like the whole .com era, and it was like all of a sudden I was making a ton of money as a freelancer because they were paying the same, the content was for the same as like on print. I'm like, whoa, cool. And then within a couple of years, the .com, everything busted, and they realized you can just use user-generated content. We'll make people write their own reviews, and I'm like, okay. Right. But I still had a little bit of work, but again, making ends meet in Northern California. So I was freelance writing. I taught dance classes. I ran like this sort of community center. I had a whole bunch of different jobs.
But as you get older, it gets it's not as fun like living like that anymore. You kind of can't.
So when
I
came to Savannah, I after about a year, there was a wonderful publication here called Skirt. Were you here for Skirt?
Yeah, that magazine.
So I was the editor of Skirt for 2 years. It was such an incredible opportunity. I got to interview people, mostly women, one man a month, in the community, and find out people's stories. And it wasn't just Savannah, it was Beaufort and Hilton Head. So I created a lot of relationships there, and learned about St. Helena.
Really
I got to know the area, like the learning curve was, straight up. And it was my job, and it was awesome.
And you were like a documentarian, basically.
Documentarian, also got to have my personality and wear like cute outfits and get invited to all the fun things, that was so great. It was the best job, but it only lasted a couple of years because it was the crash of 2009, and it didn't really survive that.
So magazines like that, they needed to rely on having
a lot of advertising.
Like ads?
Yes, exactly. So they're all advertising driven. And that was, it was a big women's magazine, and so it had, and it was a feminist, and all the content was like very woman friendly, gay friendly, like, but the ads were like, it was like plastic surgeons and like, but that's, you have to, it's a market, it's a business, and I don't have a problem with that. I really don't. I understand, like, the journalism is its own thing, but when you want to put out a publication that is entertaining, and it's about people, and it's about where you live, it's, you have to respect that this is a business climate too. So you have to strike a balance.
Right.
So I'm not mad at ads, and I'm not mad at, but it's also,
So did those companies eventually, were they just not getting more business through advertising, and so they just stopped?
Yeah, the whole thing crashed. It's the whole thing of corporate media. If something's not performing, and it just kind of, it was at that point housed in where the Savannah Morning News now used to be, but out on Chatham Parkway, and it was sort of a property of the larger multimedia business, and I think that they just started jettisoning things that weren't making them
things start going online as opposed to a print.
It was actually right around that time, even like a little before, but that's eventually what happened. But a couple years later, so that was a couple years I kind of bounced around town a little bit and did some freelancing, and ended up at Connect, and I was so grateful for the opportunity, and Jim Morekis, who is now the editor of the Savannian, and Rachel, I mean, he just allowed me to have free reign over what I wanted to write about.
Did you approach him and say you wanted to do a
No,
column?
I had actually won Best of Savannah for Best Blogger. I had that was another thing that I had been doing. I wrote a blog called Yo Yenta. I started that for a Jewish dating site back in California when my a company that my brother had started, and the company didn't buy it, but I kept doing the blog for Yo Yenta. It's still up if you want to look at it.
Were you on Blogger, on Blogspot?
I wasn't on Blogspot. I was on WordPress.
Okay.
And
I remember that era of blogs.
Yeah,
I had a
exactly.
Blogger
And
blog.
I was very dedicated, and went on. I mean, I wrote it for 14 years. I mean, there's still, so I kind of. But once I started full time at Connect, it was a lot of. I wrote 3 stories a week for almost 7 years.
Oh, you did that many? Wow.
Yeah, and so, and when I left, I wanted to put them into a book because I call her my anti-mentor, but because my anti-mentor and friend, Jane Fishman, had done the same. She had taken her columns from the Savannah Morning News over the years periodically and collected them into books. And so I asked her, I'm like, well, do you think, can I do this? And she's like, why are you asking me? Yeah, do it. And so I did. And it's been my hope because I had left media once when I published the book, and it's self-published. I mean, I didn't.
Yeah. What was the publication process like for that? Like, what was self-publishing just starting to become a thing then?
No, I think it's been a thing for 2018. I mean, it's, but I also and I explored some opportunities with other people of having other people publish it and looked at it, but in terms of like its timeline and the I don't think control is the right word, because I'd love to have a partner who could help me do more, but it just seemed the simplest way, and I really just wanted to get it out because I didn't know how long I would stay relevant, and I wanted to sort of like keep the social capital that I had built in the community.
Striking while the iron is hot.
So I did it through Create Space, which is now KDP Publishing, which is an arm of Amazon, which is a terrible thing, however very accessible. My friend Molly Hayden, who I think you probably know as well, who wrote for the paper and wrote about arts and is a wonderful person, she designed the whole book, laid it out, and took the cover photo, did it all for me.
Where are you lying in the cover photo? Where is that?
That's Monterey Square.
Okay.
And the way that was another like wonderful Savannah, not the word, it'll come to me later.
Like a Savannah moment. It's a very dreamy, beautiful
It was a Savannah
photo.
moment, and I had just come from Francis Allen's Second Line Memorial Service. So Francis Allen was this wonderful community, I wanted to say like a clown, because he was just so fun and jolly, but he was very active in a lot of Savannah. He was just a good citizen.
Yeah.
He was always showed up for people. He was always organizing. He's just a great guy.
He was a man about town.
And his wife Leslie Lovell owns Roots Up Gallery. Anyway, so that day, and I had scheduled. I knew I'd put the book together, and I wanted to shoot the cover, and the photographer, my friend, who was supposed to show up, didn't, and Molly was there, and I was like, could you just take this picture for me? And she was like, sure. Wow. And it was just like an afternoon in Monterey Square.
Did you decide that you wanted to be lying down and like partially obscured?
Yes.
You
wanted
designed
it,
that?
Yeah, I wanted it. I wanted people to look at it and think, is she drunk? Is she dead?
Right.
Like, what is happening here? So
it's very dreamy to me. It just feels like, and you describe this in one of the essays in the book, but just being so hot and like just having to lay down in the grass and take a moment. And
yes,
that's what I feel like the photo is.
Yeah.
It's just very hot.
Great. So I'm very excited because then I feel like the cover of the new book, which is called The Camellia Thief, which is one of my favorite hobbies, stilling camellias during camellia season. I think that is. I hope it will be equally as impactful, because I saw it and it makes me laugh every time I look at it. So
how did you? So when you published this, how do you decide at the beginning how many copies to do? Did you do
really
events
good
around town? Like, how do you do that?
So I think what I did with my initial run is I think I ordered like 300 copies, and to this day I order them. And then I sell them to the Book Lady and to East Shavers, who have both of those shops are wonderful, and
I know, in the longevity of them, both amazing.
Well, absolutely. I mean, they do so, and they're so different too.
Yes.
And that's what's really amazing, is that Savannah has both of these independent bookshops, which have unique personalities.
They are
unique
a stone's throw from each other.
And really run by passionate, wonderful people. So
and there's room for all of them.
Oh, definitely. So, I'm sorry, I lost my
you were saying, so you ordered 300 copies.
So I ordered 300, and I have, this was like 5 years ago. So every time they get low, I just order a few more, and sometimes it seemed like there was like a real lull, like before I started my Substack, the Savannah Sideways Substack. I was like, well, I guess it's over. It sold pretty well. I maybe had sold maybe it sold 600 to 800 copies over a couple of years. And then, but it kept trickling in. So I kept, I deliver some, and to each bookstore. They were also.
It never completely ended.
No, and then once I started the Savannah Sideways Substack newsletter in May of 2021, and I got a shout out to my girl Ruby McGrory, because she is the one who. I was so distraught. Like, I felt like I woke up from COVID, and I'm like, who are all these people? What happened to my city? What is going on?
Yes, it was a year into COVID.
Right. Exactly. And it was so, and it was kind of, I guess I was being maybe it was being a little obnoxious. And she was like, listen, I think you need to write down your thoughts.
Yeah, had you had a while where you weren't really writing much, and so you had a lot building up in your head?
Yeah, maybe. I mean, maybe it was building up in my head. Like, if you want to talk about writing, I feel like I'm the worst. Like, I feel like I remember always being, I write when I have a deadline. I write when I have an audience that I know it's going to go to.
Yeah.
Although I don't really, I'm excited to have an audience, but I feel like I'm hoping it's, it lands. But like, when I'm not and I don't have anything to do, I'm like, what's this vague angst I'm feeling constantly? But I don't really, if I don't feel like it, I'm not gonna.
I don't think that's unusual. I'm like that with art too.
Yeah.
There was a lot, just the fact that you just said about the angst. I was gonna just mention, just formally, about your writing. You do, it's a lot of metaphors, and I wrote down this one line that I love that said, I'm used to dragging along low-level existential angst like Linus's blanket, which I loved, and I was like, I feel like that too. That seems like a really good description of people nowadays, and if you're paying any kind of attention in the news, it's always just a little, like a little blanket or a little cloud.
Well, I mean, there's a lot going on.
Yeah.
There's a lot going on, and so I do find that, writing as a way to connect with other people. So I always, people are like, I love writing. I'm like, I don't love writing. Like, it's not my fun thing to do.
The actual sitting down and churning out the
sitting
words.
down and churning it out and dreaming things up. Like, I've started many novels. I've, not the making things up. I'm just I feel like the writing is the deliverable for the privilege of getting to run around and ask people questions, or to have the time and justification to sit around and just think about things and try to work things through.
Totally,
or to visit new places, or to give platform to somebody that I think is interesting and doing good work, or is cool, and things that interest me. So I feel that the writing is the material, like I said, it's like the
at
deliverable
the very end,
that, and I'm stoked that it's worked out this way.
I can say, I feel like for you, you're kind of, maybe, like you said, you're going around, you're meeting people, you're formulating ideas. It's a lot in your head, and it's all germinating. And at the end, you can get it down as a thought to communicate with people. And like you said, it was like a year into COVID, and you were like a racehorse in your head, lots of stuff running around, and Ruby was like, you need to get this stuff out.
Yeah, she was great, and she designed the logo. I mean, she's really
So your Substack, for people who don't know me, it's like it's just like another blog. It's just a place where
right.
you're
And so
publishing
what's
your
interesting
essays.
about that is that it's not like a blog. Is that built into the platform is the ability to subscribe and monetize, which I have struggled with figuring out how to do that. And so being able for people right now, I periodically close off past archives so that if you're a paid subscriber of Savannah Sideways, you have access to that, but not, and you're only able to comment and leave comments if you're a subscriber. But I still keep most of the content free to read. Because it's information that I don't know, it's about Savannah. I feel like I want people to know things that are, they wouldn't. There's information there I promise you won't get anywhere else, But
it's, I mean, like you said, you're kind of a public service where you're trying to promote people and small businesses and things that
I wouldn't consider myself a public service, but a public menace maybe.
that could add to your bio, public menace, Camellia Thief. That idea that you said about trying to figure out what aspects to put for like the paid subscribers is very interesting, and I feel like the people listening to these interviews, it's other people who are at different points in their creative journeys and are looking for advice about somebody who's doing it professionally. Like, these are things to think about, that the proportion of things that you're providing for free, and then the fact that you close off the old archives to pay. That's an interesting way to do it.
I mean, it's not an exact science. But I do hesitate to put everything behind a paywall, only because I'm like, because I know myself, and I know that sometimes it takes me sometimes before I, subscribe to something. Oh my gosh, I mean, subscription fatigue is real. I mean, how many, and I've had people say, listen, I can't, they're like, I gotta give up my subscription because I have like so many, I gotta do, so it's gotta come somewhere, and I'm like, no problem. And that's why, like, it's free to read.
Right, the love is free.
I think that the people who want to and are able to support me, I'm super grateful. I wish I could support everybody as well, but I have my people. I've subscribed to Front Porch Improv since at the beginning. They're pretty
great,
awesome, and but we all have our
and then the Savannian
and the Savannian, absolutely, and so. And I have a Savannah Morning News subscription as well, because I think they're actually doing they do a really great job.
They do,
really good job.
I love their articles. You can't read the comments.
Oh, online. You don't want to.
Yeah.
Seriously, you don't want to. Like, stay out of the comments.
Yes.
Promise. There's no, I don't, I have to say, like, I think I save a lot of time that way. I just do not engage in any of those forums when I like accidentally fall into a hole in Facebook, I'm like, no.
This is Tamara. I just wanted to jump in and say that the audio got a little weird here, but it was basically just me reading back to Jessica a quote from her book that I loved. To this adopted daughter, being Southern is to own the good, the bad, and the ugly, and then to work for better. It is a bittersweet row to hoe, which is probably why we put so much GD sugar in our tea. And here the conversation continues from that quote.
To be Southern is that's a big backpack to unpack.
Yeah.
The history here is what it is. There's no changing it, and how to go about like that. I mean, first of all, teaching it in school would help. I guess that's how you start. That would be really helpful if we taught the truth about the multi-layered history that is here. And it's fascinating. Yeah. Actually, Yeah, I mean, I feel like it's a matter of time and of numbers, just sheer population, and over time, and just the cities growing, the countryside changing. Yeah, I mean, from your lips to God's ears.
Yeah, it was interesting. I feel like just from the election of 2016 on, that it became not so much a matter of like that the North and the South were different, but the cities versus rural was the difference in every single state. Like everywhere in the country, it's a matter of like cities versus rural. So it just is like within each state, the tipping point of the cities versus the rural. And so we are like very, very slowly, like a little ink dropper of tints of blue coming about.
Well, I mean, that is as long as, the Constitution and the democracy that is intact right now, stays that way.
It's a key aspect. Yeah. That sounds like this is a good moment. We are going to take a short break, and we'll be back. Again, this is Tamara Garvey, and I'm with Jessica Leigh Lebos, the author of Savannah Sideways.
You are Listening to WRUU-LP, Savannah, Georgia, 107.5 FM. We are Savannah Soundings, community radio with a global soul.
Trees are one of Chatham County's most treasured natural resources. Beyond their beauty and cultural significance, the impact of trees are far-reaching and compounding, spanning from economic benefits to health improvements to climate change resilience. Trees are woven into every aspect of our lives. Savannah Tree Foundation protects and grows Chatham County's urban forest through tree planting, community engagement, and advocacy. More information is available at savannahtree.org. This portion of WRUU's programming is brought to you by listeners and by Brighter Day Natural Foods. Brighter Day Natural Foods has been serving Savannah's healthy food and supplement needs since 1978. It is located at the corner of Bull Street and Park Avenue. They have online ordering and curbside delivery available, and now a walk-up window for smoothies, juices, and sandwiches from the deli. They are open from 9 a.m. to 7 p.m. Monday through Saturday, and 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. on Sunday. More information can be found at brighterdayfoods.com.
What does it mean when we say that WRUU is a community radio station? It doesn't just mean that we invite the community to create programming. And it doesn't just mean that we're a voice for the community. It also means that we're counting on the community to keep us going. And you are the community. Almost all of our modest budget comes from small annual or monthly donations from listeners like you. You get to enjoy our community-focused programming because many others have stepped forward to do their part. Now do your part by joining our community of listener donors. Go to WRUU.org right now and make a one-time or monthly donation. And thank you for supporting Savannah's community radio station, 107.5 FM.
Hey, welcome back to Arts on the Air. This is Tamara Garvey, and I have the pleasure of sitting with the author of Savannah Sideways, Jessica Leigh Lebos. Welcome back.
Yeah.
And I wanted to chat about in the book you have it's just a charming collection of sort of like whimsical adventures that you go on, and a lot of names of people around town. And since this episode is going to air 2 days before St. Patrick's Day, one thing I wanted to point out, there was one story where you talk about going to the parade committee headquarters and speaking to, let's see if I get this right, General Chairman Brendan Sheehan, right? About trying to be on the, you founded the committee, you have to be almost anointed from birth, and you have to be a man.
Well, St. Patrick's Day is just one of those enduring traditions of Savannah that everybody can participate in. And so, I mean, like 1 million people come here so that they can participate in it too. And it's kind of great, you know?
So the activities coming up, there's going to be like the graining of the fountain. Oh, yeah. And then what was the other, there was another one that was at a church and then a
Right, so
walk,
gosh,
right?
forgive me, but there's a special prayer morning that, that really is, I think it's a personal thing. I think that's the heritage part of it, I mean, it's, just like Jewish holidays, like, everybody wants to party on Purim, but, there's a sacredness to it, and that is something that I also respect very much about, the Irish community has its own traditions that that it shares with all of Savannah and all the visitors, and it's pretty great.
Yeah, I loved your kind of like takeaway at the end of the story is that the whole thing is just about faith and family and neighborhood and community and all of that. And in another story you talk about trying to chase down a fox in Bonaventure Cemetery. Is that Buddy the Fox? Is that who that is?
I believe
is he a famous fox?
He is a famous fox, but I've actually seen foxes in other cemeteries as well.
They're kind of lurking.
They're kind of lurking. I think it's probably there's usually water and
I wonder if whatever they're trying to eat. I wonder if that tends to be
probably. I was going to say voles and moles and rats and mice and Yes.
There's an artist in the gallery that I'm in, Gallery 209, Rebecca Sipper. I'll give her a shout out. She has some beautiful paintings of Buddy the Fox. So he's like a Savannah lore kind of thing. Yeah. And then in another story you mention, you talk about ghosts in the Pink House, and I wanted to ask you where do you think are the most haunted places in Savannah?
Oh, that's a good question too. I mean, I think there's sort of this, there's like an exploitation of those stories and like that, but I mean, even places, when you go down and you're like, if you go down like below River Street to me, is just teeming with ghosts.
And factors walk.
And factors walk. I mean, because it's so, absolutely.
Factors
because
walk is so creepy and weird.
Well, I mean, creepy and weird. And again, like, the reason why, it's our perception. Like, you walk around and you feel that creepiness. So, we're all energetic beings. And like, if you're the energy of what happened in the first 100 years of Savannah, it was, I mean, intense and violent and painful.
Violence, illnesses.
All kinds of stuff, I mean, you're walking around Savannah, you're literally walking on broken bones. I mean, this is, all of Oglethorpe Street is the old Jewish cemetery. Calhoun Square is the African American burial grounds. Like, this is, the whole city is haunted. And to me, like, so like these sort of, these individual things that happen, but to me it's just like a feeling, and it's not always creepy, actually. I think, there's this sense of walking through the squares at night when it's, it's quiet, and there's like a silent owl that goes past you, and you have this sense of being somewhere where there's a lot of time kind of built up and sort of happening at the same time. The residues of what once was, you can still feel it here, because because a lot of the buildings are the same. Things have been undisturbed. I mean, maybe other places don't feel as haunted because, you mow something down and you build it right back up, and you don't,
I think that's an interesting point here when you're walking through the squares in downtown, and the houses, and then also the trees, since the live oak trees are a few hundred years old. So if you imagine people hundreds of years old were walking and they were seeing the exact same things that we saw, the trees and the houses, and then the insects in the trees, like they were hearing the same things that we hear.
Screaming cicadas.
I love it. The constant buzz at night. I really, really love it. And then I wonder, how long has the paper mill been around? I wonder for how many decades people have had the random paper mill smell.
Oh,
maybe it's newer.
It used to be a lot worse. So actually, there's a really interesting. The paper mill, I believe, was built like in. I don't remember, post World War II, I imagine, and
so that's a good amount of time.
And absolutely polluted and killed this river. It was so the water quality was so poor, things were dying, everything was, and they were, and the city of Savannah just dumped right into the Savannah River. In the late 1960s, Ralph Nader, it was the 70s, Ralph Nader, who was a scientist and a big consumer expert, brought a team of people here to Savannah, wrote a book called The Water Lords. I encourage everybody. The book lady will have copies. It's been out of print, and then it goes back into print. The Water Lords. It's fascinating, and it's about how this small group of people basically got the paper mill to stop dumping toxic chemicals into the Savannah River. Now, I'm not saying it's clean now. I wouldn't bathe in it, but it's a lot cleaner than it was, and and it's part of what led to the Clean Water Act. The Savannah River, in particular, fed the legislation that eventually became the Clean Water Act, saying that industry cannot dump toxic chemicals and harm our environment, and everybody lives downstream. So the problem is, and the Savannah River Keeper, the Ogeechee River Keeper, the Altamaha River Keeper, all of them still have issues with industry and regulating industry and keeping these waterways clean, because these waters dump into our oceans. Everything is connected. I'm sorry, we were talking about what? No,
it's fascinating.
But it's also garbage and styrofoam clamshells, and we all just need to be way better. We just need to be a lot less messy, y'all.
I want to talk. So in your Substack, which is your recent writings, where you publish a piece and then it gets emailed out to everybody, and you did a recent one that I guess struck a real nerve, that was about Savannah Difficult. So you did two of them, 2 weeks in a row. You wrote about Savannah Difficult, and you talked about things that make people insane here, and you mentioned municipal frustrations, and then the little things that you mentioned also, like there was people not RSVPing and then showing up late, throwing fast food trash out of car windows, and then just disposable plasticware and styrofoam in general. The styrofoam aspect here, it's fascinating to how many businesses to come across here that are still working in styrofoam.
Business people make decisions because it makes economic sense to them. It's what makes sense to them, and the bottom line, if for them paying a few cents more for something that's compostable, they feel like they have to save that money.
Right.
I don't know how you can try and legislate that, and that just makes people mad. People don't want to be told what to do. That was the best of the Savannah Difficult-ism. Savannah Difficult, by the way, was Mark Lebos came up with that in describing himself, which is totally accurate. Savannah Difficult. He's totally Savannah Difficult. Like he doesn't want, he thinks all dogs should be in leashes and there should be, but he takes like our dog to Henny Penny. Ridiculous. Like he's anyway. Savannah Difficult. Savannah Difficult is, no one knows what to do, and they're not doing it, like, the things that make the most sense, but nobody wants to be told what to do.
Right, exactly.
So I don't know what to say about that. Like, people are just going to do what they're going to do, but making the choice as a business owner to switch to compostable materials seems like a pretty easy, an easy thing to do. But again, and that's just capitalism in general. I think that it's, just because it's the cheapest solution doesn't mean it's the best one. And people, I think, ought to, even people who are just working with numbers ought to think of the human impact of every decision that they make.
Yeah. And business-wise, you never know how many people might be turned off by your decision to use styrofoam.
There are definitely businesses,
and then choose not to eat it.
There are definitely businesses in this town that I do not patronize because of that, and because they can be jerks. But I personally very much support businesses that that take a stand and are trying to make sustainable choices. Green Truck Pub, shout out to them. Whitney and Josh are the best. Like, they're great. So many other, even here at Super Bloom, where we are right now, they use oat straws, compostable. Sentient Bean, absolute pioneer in that department. They've been doing compostable stuff and like helping people sort their garbage and recyclables forever. So
it tends to be like a lot of the locally owned places tend to be really good at this.
Well, I hate to break it to you, but like, we have no impact on anything corporate ever. None of us do. And that's why, like, everything, the only thing that really matters is what you do and you don't buy in a place. So when you patronize a local business, you're keeping your money in the community, you're helping out a neighbor and friend, like, you're building the foundation on which you live. Like, it's not just a philanthropic thing to patronize a local business. It's helpful for you,
right?
Personally, it's a win-win.
Yeah.
So
like, people
I encourage everybody, and that's that's the underlying message of everything I try to put out there, is to help people realize that Savannah is a very special place, and that it only stays special if you put your actual money,
right,
and you patronize the businesses, that are supporting Savannah itself. So, and it's not, you can't do that perfectly, and not every, people.
Right, exactly.
But you've got to do your best. You got to do, we all have to keep doing it and keep doing
your
it. Your
money and your time and your effort, you have to put the effort in to continue to keep it well.
I mean, it's easy to go out to the south side and just eat at a chain restaurant, and and there's great mom and pop restaurants out there too, that we support.
I have a thing like this in my art where there's we all have to order our supplies from certain companies. There's this really big company called Uline that people order from. It's very easy. Things come really fast. It's very cheap. But I guess they are really affiliated with a lot of like right-wing donations and things. So that's like my thing, my line in the stand. So I order from places that are not Uline, even though it maybe costs a little more. You have to wait a little bit longer, but it's my effort. You talk about, I wanted to talk for a moment about the flora of Savannah, because I feel like a lot of your am I saying that right? Is about the camellias and the azaleas. I think the best azaleas are in Bonaventure Cemetery, and right now they're really peaking, right?
Right now we are at like chef's kiss. Peak azalea right now.
Yeah. Do you have some suggestions of where people can go for flower watching?
Drive up Abercorn Street, but Bonaventure is fantastic.
Yeah.
But really, everybody's yards right now. It really is a collective, just exhale of everything. Everything unfurls at once, unlike the camellias, which actually bloom at different times, and we're at peak azaleas, and I think it's going to keep going for like a few more weeks.
There's some azaleas in the fall, right? It's
there is like some that post-rate. I prefer camellias because you can't take azaleas inside. If you ever try to chop them.
You mean the actual plant?
Yep.
Okay.
So I like to collect camellias and put them all over my house. So yes, I appreciate them outside. Everything is beautiful outside. But that's why I call myself the Camellia Thief, because I really love surrounding myself in my house, like with them in glass dishes and putting them, I mean, they're my whole,
Oh, that's cool.
they're everywhere. Like every, bowl type vessel is
azaleas come in many colors. Camellias also come in many colors. They have a variegated, like a red, white one.
There are so many. There are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds. And in my new book, actually, I interview Jean from Jean's Nursery, which many of the camellia trees probably in Savannah that are in people's yards and backyards probably came from, because his father started the business and then he took it over, and he, all of these different
so he's populated Savannah with
He's
camellias.
populated Savannah, and it was a big part of, if you ever wanted the best camellias in town during the season, or at the bamboo gardens, at the coastal gardens over on I-17.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's the kind of factoid I was looking for.
Yes,
Specifics.
it's like coastal gardens. We used to just call it the bamboo gardens, but it's much more, and it does have this, it's a beautiful place, and they have great, I love, and their Instagram is amazing.
Okay.
So I want to say, I should look it up so I can tell you, because I want everybody to go follow it, because it is really...
Keep up with the adventures of the camellias.
Yes, and whoever is doing that page, I've not met her before, but she's... she does a wonderful job.
Where's the Jean's place? Where is that located?
Jean's is actually now closed, but you'll have to read my book to find out the Coastal Georgia Botanical Gardens.
Okay.
Out on I-17.
We'll follow them.
There we
great.
go. Okay.
There's another a cool thing that I found in your book. You talked about there was a musical called Johnny Mercer and Me at the Lucas in 2016. Will you talk a little bit about that and about Miriam?
Okay. What you really need to do is have Miriam come on here for herself, because she is really, she knew Johnny Mercer and wrote a play about him, and she is a real character. She's 96 years old. She grew up in Savannah. She has a book called Scarlett O'Hara Can Go to Hell. And I'm actually going to be interviewing her on a panel along with Jonathan Rabb for the Jewish Writers Panel as part of the Jewish Cultural Arts Festival that's happening all through March. And that's at the end of the month.
Fantastic. We'll definitely link to that.
I think it's March, last week of March, and it's going to be at the new East Shaver Gingerbread House.
Oh, in Starland.
Yeah, in Starland.
Amazing.
So if you know.
Shout out to them too.
Yeah, so Miriam is quite a character. Johnny Mercer remains this really, mythic figure for Savannah. So she had like personal stories about him.
So there's a musical that was. Do you think that will the musical come back ever? Is it?
I know it is her dream. I know she would love to see it staged in New York. That is, but as she says, she's like, I'm 96. I haven't got much time left.
Well, I mean, the New York publications, like the New York Times, is always writing about Savannah. I know, so I could totally see them jumping on. Who can we write to?
Who can we tell? I don't know.
Can we reach out to John Berendt and just be like,
she knows
do you have
him. She's friends with him. Yeah. They got to be really close. That's what I'm saying. She, knew all of that era. She was right in the thick of it.
Yeah. You had I was looking on your Instagram. Last December, you had a garden book party in Madison Square.
Was that December?
Event?
Oh, well, that wasn't for me. That was by invitation of Chef Lauren, who is at the DeSoto, and she is an artist chef, tremendous person, and she dreamed up. I guess, they have conventions, and there was a convention of meeting planners who was coming to the DeSoto, and she wanted to plan something spectacular for. So she planned this event in Madison Square and was doing stations, and she was pairing local authors with a drink and a snack, and it was so dreamy.
So cool.
And I mean, I literally showed up, and she had designed, and her second in command, her deputy, Lexi Ballin, and her whole staff. That was such an amazing event.
That's so creative. So what were you paired with?
Oh gosh, I think it was like an old fashioned. She was kind of like new fashioned.
Okay.
And it was like some kind of delicious. Oh, it was like smoked, because I was like, she's like, what do you like to do? I'm like, I'm like a tinned fish kind of girl. I love like sardines, salty things. So it was like, I think sardines on some.
A lot of delicious Jewishness coming out right now.
Yeah, I can't. You know what?
You wanted like gefilte fish.
I wasn't. No, not gefilte fish, but more like like the cute tin. Like I love anchovies and things like that.
Let's see. So this show is coming out Wednesday the 15th, and it is the day after will be a Savannah Slithering Parade happening in Starland. So is it going to be? Can you talk a little bit about that? Because I feel like that's a little.
Well, I mean, you'd have to that's not my event.
Yeah,
I mean, I know they're doing it again this year, and they're doing all kinds of workshops and lighting lanterns. They're lovely people. I believe that it's Thursday evening. Look at their page. So if you just kind
Savannah
of Savannah Slithering, or I think they call them the crew of the humble hedonists.
Yes.
And so, but I think they're starting out at Lone Wolf, and it's super friendly. I had an awesome time, and then they end up here at Starland Yard, and it's like a really great event for people to celebrate.
The last one was the night before Halloween, right? Is it always sort of
no, it was the night before St. Patrick's Day.
Was it always? Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know why for some reason I thought there was a Halloween thing too. But
they probably did. They probably did do so. They're super creative and
those are the two big holidays in Savannah, right?
Exactly.
Those are major holidays. Can you talk a little bit about I know you said that you said as far as writing, you're the worst one to talk about writing, but you're just about to have your second book come out, and you're a regular writer. So I want to hear a little bit about what is your routine or your non-routine, or what do you formally do?
Well, so the book, The Camellia Thief and Other Tales, Savannah Sideways Volume 2, is similarly the same format, collection of essays that I've written weekly over the last several years. And so I have a weekly deadline, and that's how I managed to compile enough material to put into a book. Yeah. And again, Jane Fishman, who was, I called her my unmentor earlier, and showed me that that's the way. And I've been to other columnist conferences. I actually have won a couple awards from the National Society of Newspaper Columnists, once in 2017 and last year in 2022. For weekly columnists in whatever format. And
was that about the Substack or about the Connect?
The first one was material from the Connect that's in the book, and the and this last year's was from the Substack.
That's cool that they look at things like that.
Well, you submit. I submitted it, but I was really honored to be chosen for that, and that so putting those things together. And it's different than having it pieced out week by week. So seeing them together and all in one format, I think presents a picture of Savannah during a certain time.
Yes.
That if you were here or you weren't here, you're gonna see it from a singular perspective, and I hope an entertaining one.
If somebody is newer to town, they can get that book and then research back just a few years before they arrived, and see the same names around town, which is amazing.
Yeah, and there a lot of them are. There's a lot of repeat characters for sure in this book. Yeah.
Where do you go to write?
I go to my big messy desk in what is like the dining room of our house with my dogs. And I would love, when I was a young writer, I was such a pain in the butt. I just sit with my journal out and my pen, and I would just, ostentatiously write in public. And I got work to do. I'm pretty intense ADD, and so I'm 51, and I have been a working writer, professional, maybe a professional working writer since I was 23. And it's all about your butt in the chair and sitting, and I get to go out and do the things, but I know at the end I know that there's going to be 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, sometimes 15 hours spent on each essay.
Oh wow.
And going, and just needing to doing laundry in between and dealing with the dogs. I will say though, my daily, and I have other projects, so I'm a freelancer. I'm really grateful. I have good paying things that I'm a copywriter for Amy's Organics, which I don't know if so if you read the new gluten-free pizza, I wrote that copy.
That's great to have some offshoots of writing just to keep
and then
that
again
those
are all relationships that just have been built over the years. I work for a nonprofit called Kiva. I'm really proud of the work that I did with them last year. And that's a micro-lending platform. I learned a lot, and I got to tell the stories of people who have utilized this service, whose lives have changed. I mean, it's really...
And that's a worldwide program,
it's a global nonprofit. I'm trying to think what else. I do a lot of copy work for Savannah Bee Company, which is an amazing local company.
Yeah.
Really just tremendous creative people. They care so much about the environment, what they're doing. Amazing honey. Buy local honey. Buy local honey. It helps with the pollen.
Have you gone to their apiary at all?
Oh, yeah.
I want to go visit.
You absolutely should. They have a wonderful place out on Wilmington Island but they are moving. They're building an incredible complex across from the new arena. And they have a new, and you can read more about that actually on Savannah Agenda, which is another great local website that I got to plug. Eric Curl used to work for the newspaper and always wrote about civic and civil and writes about, development in the city. So that's where you want to go, because that stuff is not my purview. He is much better at telling, like, this apartment's going to be going here. And so a lot of information to collect in different places. We don't really have a collated space for that anymore, and that's kind of the way of the world. So, we just kind of share information like we're doing here.
Yeah, it's kind of a matter of like looking at your Substack, looking at Savannah Agenda, looking at the Savannian. Yeah, through all three of these, you can put together a piece, and the Savannah Morning News, like you mentioned. What's your plan for St. Patrick's Day?
So, our tradition, my husband and I, we will ride our bikes, wearing green, of course. We'll have might have a Bloody Mary at the house, but it's not really the day. You gotta, we're older now. We can't just start.
Okay.
Can't start too early. But we will ride down and watch the parade and visit with friends, and then my father-in-law, who is a wonderful man, Dr. Harvey Lebos. He's a retired oncologist. His tradition is that he loves to host us for lunch at the Chatham Club, which is at the top of the DeSoto. He's been a member there for a long time. That's a really wonderful treat and privilege to go up there.
That's after the parade.
It's after the parade.
So you're looking down at the teeming
the
masses.
throngs,
yeah.
and it's always such a neat crowd of old Savannah up there.
Yeah.
And really, we get to see families. So that'll be, and then I don't know, that we bike home and go to bed early.
A disco nap.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're like me. I feel so locals either, love the parade and are into St. Patrick's Day, or they're like, oh my God, no, I'm leaving the state. There's there's no retreat.
It doesn't. I
love
find
the
that
parade.
later in the afternoon is really when things get real messy.
Yeah.
I think that especially last year, since it was the glorious
the first one after
return. I thought we had a wonderful time last year, and it was so good to see everybody out. And even with all the visitors, Savannah still feels like a small place. People know each other, and there's lots and lots of connections.
Yeah.
And everybody seemed to be having a really good time.
Yes, it was fun in a wholesome, upbeat way, and not a terrible. Yeah.
I think we're in for more of the same.
I do the same. Yeah, I go downtown for the parade, and then I come back out to Starland and enjoy out here. And, I'm not going to be downtown all day all night, because again, I'm not in my 20s anymore, so I can't handle it. Do you want to talk about just timeline for this upcoming book, and anything else that you want people to know about?
Oh my God, I'm timeline.
Other than I'll post links to your Instagram and your Substack, and then anything else you want people to know.
The book. I'm aiming for a mid to later April release, and there will be there'll be a launch. It'll be on my Instagram. I'll talk about it. And,
will there be a party?
And there will be a party. I'm hoping at several parties. I think that there's a lot of different things I want to do, different readings and different partnerships with other different businesses. I really like to pair things and raise money for other organizations. I think the more the merrier, and the more people team together and the more collaboration goes on, the better. And
your whole book is just name checking and mentioning so many local businesses, so you might as well partner with everything.
Right? I totally agree, because I really, again, I want people to know, not that, everybody has their own opinions about things. I don't think what I think is the best and the only at all. And especially now, the city has grown so much in the last years. I'm not trying to keep up. That's for y'all youngs, I'm just, this is my experience. I love this city. I want to meet and know as much as I possibly can. And that's what I'm doing.
You're like the Carrie Bradshaw.
Oh
Savannah,
my God!
Right?
I guess you know what? I'm not.
You write a column. You go out and talk to people. You get dressed up.
And what I will say is the news show and Just Like That, I did really love. I really am a Sex and the City fan, and I never really thought about myself like that, because she wrote about sex. She's this sexy, and I was like a mom. You know what I mean? I'm going to say this out loud because it sounds so dumb, but I mean, I would love to be thought of as like a cross between the Carrie Bradshaw of Savannah and the Joan Didion of Savannah.
Okay.
Because I like Joan Didion's serious and, you know, gets a little dirty.
Yes.
And I
takes on
read,
real
when
issues.
she passed away recently, I reread Slashing Towards Bethlehem, and I really, and there is a lot of documentation in her book, and I've never thought of myself, I would never compare myself to her in that great, but I did see that I feel like I'm trying to do the same thing as her, is like capture a particular place and time. And, you know, I can only aspire to do it as well as anybody else, you know, so this is my best efforts.
Well, it's wonderful. Everybody go pick up her book and then keep an eye out for future books. And this has been so much fun.
You're great, Tara.
Chatting about Savannah, and I hope everybody has a awesome, safe, lovely
stay
St. Patrick's Day
out there.
So what do you say, Slante? Is that right?
Slante, yeah.
Okay.
Aaron, go bra!
Next up on WRUU, That Old Savannah Magic from 4 to 6 p.m. It's a variety show featuring Savannah history, radio theater, interviews, and music.
You are listening to WRUU-LP, Savannah, Georgia, 107.5 FM. We are Savannah Soundings, community radio with a global soul.